All right. Good evening, everyone. My name is Leah Wabashewski. I'm the manager of annual and alumni programs at USM. Thank you guys for taking time to join us this evening. I'm very honored to be standing in for Mrs. Susan Zarwell, the Director of Upper School College Guidance at USM. And I am proud to introduce to you guys and have speak with you this evening Dr. Deepti Jain and Dr. Will Gibb, both University School of Milwaukee alumni. So this evening, they'll be sharing about their experiences, their careers, their educations, the wonderful benefits that USM provided to their medical careers, and also provide for you guys any insights and suggestions that may help you as you're deciding if you would like to pursue a career in medicine, or maybe if you're already there and there are some additional steps that will support your career along the way. Big thanks to College Guidance and to the USM Internship and Job Shadowing Program for the wonderful partnership that we've formed with the USM Alumni Association to bring these virtual career panels to everyone this year. So Dr. Jain is from the class of 2005, and she completed her undergraduate degree at the University of Pennsylvania and earned her medical degree from Duke University School of Medicine. She completed an orthopedic surgery residency at University of California in San Francisco and a spine surgery fellowship at the NYU Langone Hospital for Joint Disease in New York. And she is now assistant professor for orthopedic surgery and neurological surgery at Washington University in St. Louis. Dr. Will Gibb is from the class of 2011, and he completed his degree in neuroscience at UW-Madison and earned his medical degree at Northwestern University's Feinberg School of Medicine in 2019. Will is currently completing his residency in emergency medicine at Stanford Healthcare in Palo Alto, California. So thank you guys and welcome. And I'm just gonna dive right into it. And our first question is, how did you become interested in medicine, and specifically the specialty that you practice in, or that you teach? And I'll start with you, Deepti.
Oh, sure. How did I get interested in medicine? Well, USM has a lot of physician families around, and my dad was a physician. So I would say that probably led me down the medical career path, and primarily explored medical career opportunities when I was in college. How I picked orthopedic surgery, I think that I went into medicine and medical school knowing that I wanted to be a surgeon. I will say that I was pretty undifferentiated when I went in, thinking, did I want to do orthopedics or neurosurgery? Turns out I happen to straddle now a very subspecialized field that does both, actually, both orthopedic and neurosurgery. And that, I don't know, that was just a happy coincidence. So I ended up picking orthopedic surgery, I think, because it's what I ended up being exposed to. And then additionally, I just found I really liked working with bones, the biomechanical aspects of treating bone injuries and musculoskeletal injuries. Also pretty active in my own regard. And I think activity is really important, and it's really nice to be able to restore activity to patients. So that's what led me down that career path. That being said, I think I could have been any number of kinds of doctors and been very happy. There's a lot of different areas of medicine, and I think they can all be rewarding.
Yeah, and for me, I interestingly was exposed to medicine first. I don't know if you guys are still doing it, but through the profile paper project, junior year, I believe. Emily Erkey was my teacher, and I shadowed a neurosurgeon for that. And actually, through the writing that I did, ended up getting a job working for him and writing patient educational material, and worked for him for a couple of summers actually in high school and throughout college. And that was like an amazing exposure to medicine overall. And then in college and undergrad, I was exposed to all sorts of types of medicine, and eventually settled on emergency medicine. I think it's a really cool specialty because you treat everyone. You treat adults, you treat children, you treat people who are pregnant, all sorts of conditions. So it's a really fascinating field. It's really challenging because of that. And yeah, so I'm really happy in this field, and it's very flexible. You can do all sorts of things afterwards. So that's something that's really nice.
So it sounds like, indirectly for you, Deep T, and kind of directly for you, Will, that your experiences at USM somewhat played a part in your decisions to pursue careers in medicine, which is wonderful. So, in your current specialty and what you do, and Will, I know you just said that with emergency medicine, you do a lot of different things. But Deep T, you're very specialized. So, in your day to day, what are your responsibilities or the different things that you handle with case by case basis, or interesting kind of one off special, I don't want to say projects, but special things.
Yeah. Yeah. I will say that my life has changed quite a bit over the past few months because I have co-founded a company and I'm CEO of a new company. And so the entrepreneurial aspect of my life has actually really changed my day to day in most recent times. So maybe I'll go back to before I started my company and then maybe talk about how that switched a little bit. So day to day, I personally have 2 days a week in the office where I see patients. My day usually starts around, I'd say 6:30 a.m. I usually have some kind of conference at 6:30 a.m. And then I'm usually in the office by about 8 a.m. And then usually I'm done by about 4 or 4:30 in the afternoon. And then there are other days where I operate 2 days a week. And so again, our OR starts at about 7:15, but I usually have a conference at about 6:30 in the morning. And then the OR can be really variable. There are some days where I'm done at noon. There are some days when I'm done at midnight. And on those days, I am mostly operating, as you would imagine, but there is quite a bit of downtime in between cases and things like that. So I think it can be pretty relaxed. And then I do spend 1 day a week normally as an academic day. I am at an academic institution. And so research is a big part of my job. And so I do quite a bit of research as well as other like administrative and academic activities, leadership positions within our hospital. That's when I tend to have those kinds of meetings. So now that I've also become an entrepreneur, I would say that most of my evenings are spent on my company. So now I come home at 4 and I'm working on my company until I go to bed. So it's been like a really exciting roller coaster, I'd say.
Yeah, and then for me, my day to day, I think it was said before, I'm in residency, so that's the more rigorous part of your training, where you're working much more than you would when you're an attending, ideally. And in the emergency department, basically, you show up to work for eight or 10 hours, usually as a shift, and you're just seeing patients constantly the whole time. Basically, you show up and there's a waiting room full of people who could have chest pain or abdominal pain, or it could be a child, it could be someone delivering a baby, it could be someone from, who was in a car accident. All just come in, you see as many people as you can and take the best care of them that you can in 8 hours, 10 hours, and then you get to go home. So it's really, really intense and can be pretty overwhelming at work because of the volume of people that you're seeing. But then at the end of the day, you get to go home and you're not on call because, there's always someone working in the ER 24/7. So that's really nice. Although I'll say there's not much downtime at work, which can be stressful too.
Absolutely. We all have to find the balance, right, in between work and life. We had an aerospace panel last month where the panelists talked about the importance of maintaining your personal hobbies and to find that balance and the release outside of the workplace. Would you guys say that is also something that's important, in medical careers, to be able to decompress from your workday and step away from it? Or, Deep T, is that maybe where, what your entrepreneurial side comes in? Or, is that something that holds true for you guys as well?
Yeah, I think Will picked an excellent specialty that allows for a lot of that because you really aren't on call for your patients. I'm on call 24/7 for my patients. And so if it's Saturday and my patient has a problem, I'm going in to take care of that patient. And so that's just how it is. If I'm out of town, I fly back actually, and I take my patient to the operating room. So I definitely had to leave my family on vacation before. It's not that I have to, I have other partners who could take care of it, but yeah, that's really important to me that I take good care of my patients. So, I mean, that's always a priority. And it's different in different specialties. You know, Will has picked a great specialty when it comes to that. But yeah, I think maintaining personal hobbies is important. It's just a matter of making a priority list. I have a small kid, I have a 2-year-old. And so, yeah, you know, personal hobbies, I'll be frank, has fallen on my priority list, you know, behind my job, my company, and my kid. So it just depends.
Yeah, I mean, no matter what specialty you pick, work-life balance is pretty tough in medicine. My specialty, like you're saying, it's better in some ways, although it's tough because of the shift work. I'll have in one week I could work overnight, I could work in the afternoon, and I could work in the morning. So it's tough on their circadian rhythm, but um, it's good. I think we all picked medicine because it's a very meaningful career. And even if the work is really challenging, it's incredibly meaningful. And I don't think there's many other careers where you feel like you can show up every day and be there for people. And like you're saying, there's a reason you fly back from vacation to take care of your patients who had complications or whatever. It's because you care about them, and you can be there to help them. So I think that is very meaningful at work. And I think I like to do things outside of the hospital. It's one of the reasons I picked emergency medicine. But I don't know, it's important. I think one thing I wanted to convey at one point during this talk is, you guys are so early in your decision tree, and it's awesome that you're considering medicine, but there's so many years ahead to kind of decide. And I think medicine is one of those careers that people feel like they have to pick very early, but many people find it later, and that's okay. So don't feel pressured to like decide and get internships right away, because there might be something you find later that you like as well.
That's a great point. So on that note, what opportunities or classes at your college or university do you feel prepared you best for your field, or perhaps inspired? Will, you're saying that people are early on in their decision tree. Were there classes or experiences that maybe inspired you to pursue medicine?
Yeah, I'd say for me, it was probably more my work experience. I worked this job as one of the neurosurgeons in Milwaukee for 3 or 4 summers. So that's when I knew that I wanted to take care of patients, basically. And then the nice thing about medicine is you don't really have to do something specific in college, especially now. It's much more flexible. So you have to take a certain amount of prereqs in college, but it's not that many. And you can basically do whatever else interests you. You don't have to major in the sciences. Some would say it's advantageous to major in something else, but I was really into photography in college, and I went to Wisconsin. I did a lot of sports photography that was really enjoyable. So I would say like my work experience is what made me know I wanted to do medicine, but I think going to Wisconsin or any kind of well-rounded school is nice because you can pursue other things as well.
Yeah, and I would echo what Will said very strongly, actually. I mean, I don't think that there was anything in college that really said I should go be a spine surgeon. Yeah, I don't think that happened. But I mean, I did have opportunities along the way in medicine or in college that allowed me to become interested in the sciences. But definitely, there wasn't like a specific class. Really, to echo what Will said, you can major in anything. I was an econ major in college, and so yeah, I think just like pursuing passions is the most important thing. And there's so many aspects about medicine these days, and that's becoming so increasingly important. Medicine is not just about knowing the sciences and knowing like the biochemistry pathways. There's so much more to medicine, and just the healthcare experience as a whole, that so many different areas of interest can be really valuable to shaping a good doctor. And so yeah, I mean, you have to take a certain number of prerequisites, but I definitely would not say you need to pursue a specific, interest in college. People do like to see that you've demonstrated some amount of interest, like within the medical field in some way, shape, or form, whether that means through volunteer experiences or research or something. So that is important in addition to the classes to take. But yeah, I would say follow your passions.
So that's a really great actually segue to the next question that I have on our list. I feel like specifically for you, DT, because you just said you were an econ major. So what was your major and how did you ultimately pick your major at college? And is it what you thought you would major in?
Oh, that's a hard one. You have to remember all this happened like over 10 years ago. So it's kind of hard. I mean, yeah, I've been out of college, for 12, 14 years. So it's hard to remember my mental state at the time. I think I was really influenced by my peer group. I went to Penn, which is a very finance heavy school. And a lot of people from my college become investment bankers. I was actually exploring a career as an options trader, and almost went down that career path as well. And so, yeah, I just found econ to be interesting. I was really good at math, and econ was a good application of math. So I enjoyed that part of it. Again, I found it interesting, and there were so many applications to healthcare in particular. I mean, our industry, 17 to 18% of our GDP is dedicated to healthcare. So understanding the economics behind healthcare is so important. So yeah, I just found that area of healthcare pretty interesting.
Yeah, I picked neuroscience. I studied a little bit of French and I did a lot of photography, but I think I just thought it was really interesting how the brain works, and Wisconsin had a very strong and rigorous like neuroscience program. So yeah, I think it was really interesting. I don't use much of it now, but it was still a really cool experience. And a lot of my friends were also in that kind of, not even from coincidence, just, we were all interested in similar things. In terms of picking a major, we said this already, but it truly doesn't matter. Just do what you're passionate about. And if you can pursue medical school while doing that, that's great. And if you find something else along the way that's more interesting, that's great too. But definitely don't feel like you have to do biology or something. Like that's not the case at all.
Do you guys both feel that, despite Will, your major was pretty applicable to pursuing a career in medicine, and but do you feel that there are aspects of your chosen undergraduate degrees that are applicable to either the medical industry and your careers specifically?
Sorry, was that to me or to Will?
Well, kind of to both of you,
We're
really.
both kind of
Okay.
pausing.
I mean, for me, yeah, 100%. I mean, like I said, economics is really, really important. Finance is really important when we think about healthcare. 18% of our GDP is dedicated to healthcare. And so as a physician, it's not just about understanding, do I cut here? Do I cut here? What kind of instrumentation do I use? Is this like a degen spondy or is it an isthmic spondy? Like these are things that like are important and are important to being a good surgeon. But when it comes to actually thinking about how to be innovative in the field, it's really helpful to have that understanding 100% without hesitation. Would I say that set me up very well?
Yeah, for me, I mean, neuroscience, I don't use too much. I think it's nice to have an understanding. I would say sort of an undergrad in neuroscience is very research and cellularly focused, which is not as much where medicine focuses. But I think what I did spend a lot of time on, I mentioned this before, is photography. And that's been a really nice, I have like a photography business that I do on the side when I have time. And
Oh, that's so
I think,
cool.
yeah, I think developing that has been very nice. Yeah, so I think that, that's the main thing that I take away from it. But
So I feel like kind of both of your answers actually really support the next question. And how did your college help prepare you for the medical school application? You know, in terms of your undergraduate experience, was it the rigorousness of your coursework, or were there other internships or externships that you participated in, or programming associated with your college experience that helped?
I feel pretty strongly to say that the college is important, but it's definitely the person that matters more. I went to a really big college, actually not as big as Will, but there were 10,000 undergrads where I went to college. And so there's no one in college that's going to hold your hand and say, do X, Y, Z. And it's kind of like, you just have to figure it out. And so just the ability to take initiative is very, very important. So yeah, and you have to like look for those opportunities. No one's going to put them in your lap. And so that's one thing I learned in college, right? There were 2,500 people in my class. And so did college set me up? I mean, I chose I chose a pretty rigorous academic course load, but definitely you can get by in college without doing that. I think really what's important is that one should get from college, however they do that, is I'd say first and foremost, the ability to communicate with other people and act in a professional manner. I think that's really, really important in medical school. And then second is, just the ability to like study and do well. I mean, everyone has to take the same exams and you have to pass them. Medical school is not hard once you get in. I'll say that. Like P equals MD. That's what we say in med school. Pass equals MD. But you do have to pass. You have to pass the step exams and the board exams. And so, if you're really rigorous in college, you'll just more likely to be successful just from like study skills.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I think when I think back to when I was applying to colleges, I got into a lot of, I'll say I was stressed because a lot of my friends were going to private colleges and those were all the schools that I had gotten into. But for financial reasons, I ended up going to Wisconsin and was like, oh, is this, it felt like settling in a way. But I'll say like it was such an amazing experience. And I agree 100% where when you go to a bigger school like Penn or Wisconsin, it really is pretty self-driven. There's a ton of pre-meds that you'll meet when you start there. And many of them, for whatever reason, won't end up going to medical school. So if it's something you really want, you have to pursue those opportunities by yourself. And there are mentorship organizations. Like I got involved in a research organization that helps sort of make it feel smaller. And that was a nice thing. But, I would say it's a lot of what you make of it. It's easy to just go to college and there's just so many opportunities and finding the right ones where you can find good mentorship is probably the best thing if you want to pursue medicine.
I think that's a great, DT, I believe that you're a very active mentor. Is that correct in terms of things that you do outside of, just the many other professions? And would you say...
What do you mean by that? I'm just curious what that means.
Like being a mentor, or like the many other things that you do?
I wouldn't say it's like an activity of mine. I mean, I have mentees for sure.
Yeah. So would you say that that's a valuable, for a medical student or someone?
Yeah, for sure. To identify someone. So, I mean, I happen to now work at an academic institution. And so part of my job is to teach trainees and to teach residents. Again, these are now people who are post-med school and are now in residency. And so, definitely mentorship is part of what I do because I have trainees. I don't often mentor people at the younger ages, not because I don't want to, they don't approach me as much.
So what opportunities and experiences from university school do you guys feel have been helpful in preparing you for your career?
Yeah, I mentioned the profile paper project. I think overall, what we've been getting at is you guys have such a great network of people that you can connect with, either alumni or just, parents of your friends who are involved in medical careers or other careers. So just getting plugged in with them is like a really great way to get exposure. And it's not something that I think you probably will appreciate much more until you meet friends who have not had that like fortunate background. So I think in some ways it can be stressful because you have all these friends who have all these connections and you're like, oh, I have to do this thing or that thing. But it's a great opportunity at the time. So taking advantage of whether it's medical or whatever else, mentorship just in your own small communities is really helpful.
Yeah, I would 100% agree with what Will said. Take advantage because that's how the world works later on. It's all about who you know. frankly. And so, really USM positions every one of its students to know the most successful people. And that is one of the best things about USM is you have this incredible network that's available to you. And so, yeah, taking advantage of that network is really helpful. The other thing I would just say is the academic rigor of USM. I mean, college was a breeze for me because USM prepared me so well, just from an academic perspective. USM taught really great study skills. I was lightning ahead of my peers when it came to like being able to write a paper, just because USM just teaches those things so well. So do good at school in high school, and you'll do well in college. In fact, college will be easy. You like won't need to go to class.
That's wonderful. So what are also some of the professional organizations and continued learning opportunities that either of you may be involved in?
Well, I was going to say, Will's a trainee, so his whole life is about continuing education, and I'm at an academic practice, so my whole life is about academic education. Yeah, I mean, it goes on and on. In the medical field, there are so many professional societies. So societies that like I'm a member of are the North American Spine Society, the American Academy of Orthopedic Surgeons. The list, every specialty has their own societies. And then in terms of like education opportunities, is that I teach as part of my job, and so I probably give a lecture a week, I'd say, and I teach like cadaver courses, and then nationally speaking, I also lecture a lot nationally, and so we travel a lot to these conferences, and I either present research or I give talks on a topic. And then I also teach like cadaver courses nationally, and so I don't know if that's the best thing because it requires time away from my family to do all that and a lot of traveling associated with that, which has its downsides. But yeah, the opportunities are endless in the medical career when it comes to that.
Yeah, in medicine, you're always going to have these opportunities. I mean, not like obviously you have to be accomplished and stuff, but it's really about learning how to say no to things. Like there's always like there's never a paucity of things to say yes to. So I think for better for worse, we in medicine love to continue to teach and learn and participate in things. So that will always be there. And this is probably not as important for you guys now, but thinking about like the types of medicine that there are, I mean, we're both in the academic world, which basically are the hospitals that are associated with universities that you guys have heard of. So Stanford or WashU are two of those. And there's also medicine outside of that, like people who work at like St. Luke's or other hospitals that aren't associated with medical centers or colleges. So people who work at academic centers usually have many more obligations that involve teaching or going to conferences or doing work that's not necessarily compensated compared to people who are working for private practice or other groups. So not something to like decide about, but just something to be aware of, that there's multiple practice settings.
Yeah, that's definitely important information to have. What challenges and opportunities do you foresee in medicine? For example, students interested in medicine, should they also study business? Is it advantageous to have a liberal arts background over, something else? Speaking a second language? Are there strengths and weaknesses in the medical system that COVID has revealed? Just a lot of what do you guys foresee for the future of careers in medicine?
I'll let Will go first.
Yeah, so I think it's hard for us to say, like, we're kind of telling you guys to relax, it'll be okay, all this stuff, but it's still stressful to be in your position, right? You still feel like you have to craft this like very good application to get into medical school and college and all that. And it is true that you'll be okay, but it's also true that process is stressful. And what I would just say is like, just please pick something that you're passionate about, and whatever it is, you can bring that to medicine if that's what you want to pursue. I think one of the biggest problems in general with medicine is the idea of burnout, which is very familiar to us, but may not be something you guys have heard of, which is basically just, clinical work over and over again can be very exhausting. And doing something on the side, whether that's having your own company, which also sounds exhausting, but very invigorating as well. Or, you mentioned a language, like, I don't know, like, teaching a language course or having a photography business or whatever your other thing is, you can either bring that to medicine or do that on the side. And that's going to like, pay so many dividends over the years in your career when you could just be like doing the same, clinical work over and over. Having that extra thing, whatever it is super, super valuable, not only in your career and getting a job, but just for your own like fulfillment and longevity.
Yeah, I would agree with everything that Will said. Yeah, I mean, there are challenges in the medical profession. Some of them have to do with compensation, some have to do with work. I mean, it's not fun to leave my family on vacation to go operate on my patient, let's be real. So those are real challenges. I think we've already talked about that. My situation is a little unique. I happen to be in a field that's less than 1% women. And I'm one of 40 women spine surgeons in the whole country. So there just aren't that many of us. I have a whole nother set of challenges associated with that. But at the same time, I also have opportunities associated with that. And so all I would say is ignore those challenges and seize the opportunities.
That's really good advice. And so speaking of advice, what advice would you give current USM students? So those students who are with us tonight or will be, watching this recording later on, what advice would you give them, as they're considering or, maybe really on the path for pursuing careers in medicine? What would you say to them?
I would just say get involved in shadowing. I mean, I don't know. I don't know how I felt. I was probably intimidated to email physicians in high school and like get involved with opportunities. But we love to like teach and expose people to our fields, and especially like getting people who are so bright-eyed and know nothing about it, and to show them like what we do is really amazing. So, just sending that one email to someone and saying, hey, can I just get coffee with you or come shadow you or whatever is something that you could do to see if that process could be started and just see what opportunities are available.
Yeah, I would say first and foremost at the high school and college level, just get good grades. No one's going to let you in the door unless you have good grades. So I would say that that's like the most important thing. Definitely not sufficient, but the most important thing is just get good grades. I mean, I know, having worked on the other side, like we screen applicants based on their MCAT score and based on their grades, like you just won't get an interview. I will say once you get into med school, grades no longer matter. And like I said, P equals MD. So, it's just getting in. Once you get in, it's like easy breezy. And, just to pass and study and pass. But yeah, so I'd say that's my one piece of advice is get really good grades. As I mentioned, that's not sufficient, however. So yeah, I would say just pursue your passion in addition to that, and then the rest will kind of work itself out. Like I can't think of a single major that wouldn't have some application to healthcare.
Mm-hmm. So would you say, was medical school if you had any expectations about it, was it what either of you expected in terms of, the rigor, the difficulty, the hours, maybe how it impacted your lives, socially, personally, right? So was it what you expected? Was it more? Was it less?
I thought it was better than medical school is great. I mean, it was sort of like the first time you feel like you sort of made it, right? Because you got past like, most of your peers are going to go to college and that doesn't feel like quite as big of a milestone. But once you're in medical school, you feel like very accomplished. And like you were saying, especially nowadays, like pretty much every grade in medical school is pass fail. So you're still studying a lot, but the pressure is off to an extent, and just meeting all the people you'll meet who all have like similar goals. It's just really nice. I mean, I don't know. I went to med school in downtown Chicago, and that was like a really amazing place to be. So it was much more fun than I thought it was going to be. It was much more meaningful. And I made so many great friends there. So it was great.
Yeah, I always joke that med school was like the best 4 years of my life. Yeah, it was so much better than I thought it would be. Not that I thought it would be bad, but yeah, it was awesome. It's a really good time. I got really into triathlons when I was in med school. I mean, there's a substantial amount of time to pursue things. I went to a really fun med school. Like we had a great time. The one thing about my med school, I don't know how other med schools are, is that we were on the same schedule. And so we all had exams on the same day and we all had anyway, so because we were all on the same schedule, like we were all free on the same weekend. And so, yeah, I just went to a really social med school. It was really fun.
So before I open it up for our Q&A session for anyone who's attending to submit some questions, is there anything that y'all would like to add? Any bits of advice or information that we haven't covered so far that you think would be beneficial?
I said this before a little bit. I would just say never be afraid to like send that email to someone if you want to connect. I think there's always this like perceived or real hierarchy that you feel, and it makes it feel intimidating to reach out. But at the end of the day, we're all just, hopefully nice people who want to share our experiences. So, don't let that get in your way of pursuing something, I would say.
Yeah, don't take no for an answer. Be persistent. I love that.
That's great.
That's true in all aspects. That's not true just for medicine. That's true for any career. I mean, you have to apply to like 50 jobs to get one interview, right? So, be aggressive.
So we did have a question come through kind of, I guess, about, applying to jobs, but more applying to medical school. What was the medical school application process like? Did you have to send out many different applications? Can you guys talk about what that process was like for you and any takeaways?
Yeah, it's probably, it changes all the time, probably. It's I think similar to college where there's a standardized application service and you, submit applications on there. I think the similarity to college is there's a lot of secondary applications. I think that's still a thing, right? So you'll get an interview or you won't to a place and you have to submit like a secondary application. So it was a ton of work. It was way more work than applying to residency or fellowship now. But it's still standard. I mean, you apply, you write an application that's maybe specific to that program. The main thing with applying is figuring out your MCAT situation. Like, when are you going to take it? When are you going to take time off to study? I think most people take at least a month of like dedicated time. But I don't know, it's sort of like any application process, but just takes a little bit of planning.
I'm going to be frank, I don't remember. It was a very long time ago. One thing I did do at the time is I hired a consultant to help me actually. And he helped me with all my essays. He helped me, he mock interviewed me. And a lot of my friends actually did that for business school also. I don't know many people who did that for med school actually, but I do know a lot of people who do it for business school. So, and one of my friends who was applying to business school like suggested that I do that. And so I found that very, very helpful.
Would you say that that's like a bit of advice that you may give to, college students pursuing?
Yeah, if you have the resources, yeah. If you have the resources. I mean, it's expensive and, college students, right, and are not rolling in the dough. But if you have the resources, I just found it helpful just to prepare me adequately. Not that it's going to help or hurt your chances per se, but to me, it took a little bit of the stress off and made that process easier.
Well, we've got, did you have anything to say?
I was just say I didn't do that. I think, you don't just in terms of just saying, I was not familiar with too many people who did that. So don't be stressed if you don't have the time or resources to do that either.
We did have a question come in asking if you guys would be willing to, if you guys would let students reach out to you. If they had further questions about, their journeys or just anything additional, if you guys would be willing to answer some emails or anything like that.
Yeah, of course. I think you have our emails, right?
I do, yes.
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
Yeah, of course.
Well, good. Well, thank you guys so much for spending time with us this evening. And I know that you're both busy people, and in different time zones. So I appreciate y'all taking the time. And again, we will have this recording available for all of our alumni and upper school students. And many thanks to College Guidance and the USM Job Shadowing and Internship Program. We look forward to bringing you guys more programming throughout the year, and many thank yous to Dr. Deepti Jain and Dr. Will Gibb for your time today. We look forward to engaging with you further in the near future.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks. Feel free to email me about any questions.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks. You guys have a wonderful evening.
Bye.